Rosa Brown was 47 years old, and she lived alone in a small house near the center of town. The house had a garden filled with flowers. She would sit there in the evenings, listening to the birds and watching petals sway. It was the one thing that made her feel at peace. Her husband had left her 3 years ago. Rosa had no children, no close family, and only a handful of friends. She worked in an office. A quiet, predictable life. Loneliness had settled into her bones like a cold she could never shake. One hot afternoon, she decided to walk home. The warm sun felt good, and she wanted to feel something different for once. Walking a narrow street, she noticed a small antique shop with a dusty window. Rosa always had a soft spot for old things. She stepped in. The shopkeeper greeted her. That was when she saw an old doll sitting on a shelf, slightly hidden. It was a small figure of an old man with white hair and black clothes. Its face was strange, unsettling, but it drew her in. She thought, perhaps this doll is lonely too. She asked the shopkeeper how much it cost. He said £3. It was a lot for a worn-out doll, but she paid without hesitation. As she looked at its face, she could have sworn it was smiling. She told herself it was just a trick of the light. She spoke to it softly, telling it she was taking it home. Then she laughed at herself. It was only a doll, but she was lonely, and lonely people do strange things. A few minutes into the ride, a voice rang out clearly. "Go away, you stupid man. Go away." Everyone on the bus stared at Rosa. The ticket collector looked at her with cold eyes, convinced she had said it. She sat there, red-faced and confused, her heart hammering. That night, she placed the doll on the kitchen table and tried to forget the strange moment on the bus. She ate a little bread and butter. She went to bed and drifted off to sleep, but when she woke, the doll was sitting on the edge of her bed, staring at her. She had left it on the table. She was certain. She told herself she must have moved it in her sleep, but knew that wasn't true. Stranger still, the letters by her front door had all been opened. She hadn't opened them. She lived alone. There was no one else. The following morning on the bus to work, an elderly woman stood in the aisle, looking exhausted. Rosa stood up to give her a seat, and then that voice rang out again, sharp and cruel. "You stupid old thing." The elderly woman spun around and glared at Rosa. Rosa's face burned. She reached into her bag, and there it was, the doll, sitting among her papers. Its ugly face stretched into a wide smile. She had left it at home. She was absolutely sure of it. She got off the bus, walked to the nearest street corner, and placed the doll on the ground. She walked away without looking back. That was the end of it, she told herself. She felt lighter for the rest of the day, but when she arrived at the bus stop after work, her heart stopped. The doll was there, sitting at the stop, waiting for her. Rosa turned and ran. She walked the full 3 kilometers home, her feet aching, her thoughts spinning. She collapsed into a chair and fell asleep from exhaustion. An hour later, she was jolted awake by a crash from the other room. She found the doll sitting on the table, surrounded by broken cups and plates scattered across the floor. It looked up at her without expression, only that smile. She took the doll into the garden and buried it deep in the ground. She pressed the soil down firmly and told it, in a calm but shaking voice, that it was over. That night she slept peacefully for the first time in days. But just after midnight, a noise pulled her out of sleep. It was coming from the back door. She crept downstairs, her whole body trembling, and opened it. The doll stood on the step, covered in dirt, smiling up at her in the darkness. Rosa felt a fear she had never known before. It was cold and deep and complete. She whispered for it to go away. The doll said nothing, it only smiled. Something shifted inside Rosa in that moment. The fear didn't leave, but something harder replaced it. Anger. She went to the garden shed, gathered pieces of old wood, and built a fire right there in the dark. She lit it and watched the flames grow. Then she placed a doll on top and stepped back. "This is the end of you," she said quietly, and for the first time she meant what she said. The fire grew tall and wild, climbing into the night sky. Neighbors woke to the orange glow and rushed outside, shouting. They gathered around Rosa's garden, calling her name, searching the light and the shadows. But Rosa was nowhere to be found. The fire crackled and roared, and then slowly died down to glowing embers. When the neighbors looked at the ground near the ashes, they found the doll. It sat there untouched, its white hair still white, its black clothes still black. Not a single thread had burned, and on its old, ugly face, as clear as ever, was a smile.